All right, just after 1 o'clock. Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome to our SESA webinar. The topic of today's webinar is exploring the potential of second life batteries in African countries. My name is Esther van Bergen. I'm the General Manager and Director at Senex Nederland, which is a not-for-profit and consultancy research organization specialized in supporting the transition to sustainable transport. Our team of experts work with governments, companies, and knowledge partners on three main relevant areas in this transition, namely zero-emission vehicles, the energy infrastructure, and circular economy. Hence, the topic of second life batteries also relevant for us. And I would like to make one note of administration. Basically, we will have a few moments where there's time for Q&As from the audience. And I would like to ask you if you have any questions for our guests, to please put them in the chat, and we will collect them during the presentation or the discussion. And when there's a Q&A moment, we can share them with our guests. Thank you very much. Well, today we have several guests who will take us and you on a journey and sharing their experiences and insights from various relevant perspectives. So without further ado, let's begin. To give a little bit of context, the use of batteries has been gaining traction across the world for battery electric vehicles and in other applications. They're aiming to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and boost the adoption of clean energy technologies globally. And in general, the lifetime of batteries in passenger vehicles is currently considered to be around 10 years or maybe longer, depending on its application and usage. However, battery capacity reduces over time, and to the point where they are no longer viable to be used in such vehicles. When batteries still have capacity to be repurposed and utilized in other applications, as second life batteries, that can save costs and enhance necessary steps to adopt a more circular economy practice. This increases the lifespan and reduces the need for more resources, and also helps to prevent early or improper disposal of the batteries, which can contribute to environmental pollution and health issues. And this provides an opportunity to explore the potential of second life batteries in various applications, including the electrification of grid, energy usage, energy storage, etc., and explore the new businesses that can be created around the recycling and repurposing of these second life batteries, and taking into account the benefits for local African context, as well as existing or upcoming legislation or regulation across the African countries. In this webinar, the speakers will present some of the activities being undertaken in the SESA project relating to this topic of second life batteries. And in addition, the webinar will also host speakers from outside the SESA project, to discuss business and policies in the African context. The webinar is part of the fifth module of the SESA capacity building program, which is a self-paced e-learning program, which focuses, in this case, on second life batteries. And the other modules also cover other topics related to the renewable energy-based solutions. And these courses are available on the NUA Campus platform. And these courses and their corresponding webinars will also be available through the SESA toolbox, which I'll share the link later on. So what's the webinar program for today? We have a welcome introduction, which we are currently doing. And after this brief introduction, I will shortly zoom in on the SESA project. We will then explore two use case examples, inviting our first guests to share their activities within SESA Living Labs. They are placed in Morocco and in South Africa. We continue our exploration in our first discussion session focusing on how do businesses see future potential for second life batteries. Our second discussion, focuses on the question, do technologies and process align with policy aspects for second life batteries, where we have two additional guests joining us who will share their perspectives and answer some of the discussion questions we have prepared. And we will finally do a wrap up and close the webinar. And we hope that you will enjoy the webinar and come away with interesting new information or perspectives from our guests. They will have an opportunity to introduce themselves in their respective sessions, but I would like to take this moment briefly to introduce and to thank our guests for their contributions in joining us today. And our guests are Zakaria, Leandre, Ital, Bashir, Raymond, Samuel, and Ismail. Thank you for joining us. So what is the SESA project? SESA is a collaborative project between the European Union and 9 African countries. As you can see, these are Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, Malawi, Morocco, Namibia, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Nigeria. And they aim to at providing energy access technologies and business models that are easily replicable and to generate local opportunities for economic development and social cohesion in Africa. Through the local living labs, SESA facilitates the co-development of scalable and replicable energy access innovation to be tested, validated, and then later replicated. These solutions include decentralized renewables, energy storage systems, second life electric vehicle batteries, local microgrids, solar irrigation, waste to energy, and rural internet access. And they all contribute to various objectives to support climate proofing, resilience, and adaptation. Running from October 2021 until September 2025, SESA is the result of a partnership between leading European and African universities, research centers, industry actors, local governments, knowledge and implementation organizations, and network. As you can see here, these are the countries where they are demonstrating, validating, and replicating the various technologies and business models. So let's move on to our first use case from our partners in the Living Labs, where we have our first partner join us from Green Energy Park in Morocco, Zakaria and Ibtal. May I give the floor over to you? I will stop sharing and you can share your screen.
Okay. Thank you, Esther, for the presentation and the quick presentation of SESA. So I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so here as a use case for the SESA project, we have the Morocco Living Lab presentation. So we can stay and see how we created the synergies between stakeholders into 2 main living labs that we have, or the 2 main pilots. The first one, which is the rural pilot, and the second one is the urban pilot. For the rural pilot, we are talking about the enhancing energy access, which is one of the main SESA goals, to a low community or low income community. And we can see that the use of energy storage is highly recommended within this off-grid or non-connected solar platform or solar plants. And then we can relate to the webinar's main target here, which is the EOL, or end of life batteries. So we can see that Green Energy Park as a facilitator and a consultant here within this Living Lab, and creating these synergies between all the stakeholders. We have seen that the use of energy and the battery energies are demanding and highly degraded. It will be highly degraded within time. So we spotted the let's say we spotted the main waste points for our living lab and try to contribute in the EOL roadmap. So we can see that, for example, here within the installation, the batteries are one of the primordial components for our living lab, and the use, the optimization, and the treatment of these batteries are necessary at a certain point. Let's say we're talking about 4 or 5 years lifespan. So the waste would be generated and retreated inside GEP, UM6P laboratories dedicated for this purpose. Okay, for the urban living lab is the same thing. It is a ecological way of transportation, creating a sharing business model that supports EV introduction in Moroccan and African context. Surely Morocco can be a let's say it is a use case in North African environment, and promote this integration in Africa also. So regarding the last e-mobility aspect that we treated, which is the e-mobility webinar, so we spotted challenges that are related directly to EOL treatment. So one of the concerns is the safety of EV batteries and how to be treated, how we can support the network and maintenance and repair of EVs, mainly the battery and the converters that need to be developed, and how we assess the production of spare parts. One of them is the battery, which is the main target here. We can also talk about how we can opt for the monopolistic situation of electricity market and how we can overcome this challenge. So a quick reflection on e-mobility situation in Morocco, like as we discussed in the previous webinar. So we see that the roadmap for the EV introduction is presents a great opportunity in Morocco and Africa. So as a result, we will have a certain degree of and a high number of batteries that need to be treated and recycled. So that means a great opportunity for discussing this matter. For example, we've put a slide on the return of investment, and like we see here for the motorcycles or the e-mopeds, we have a lifespan of 60,000 kilometers, which means that after the 60,000 kilometers, we need to replace and repair the batteries. So inside the laboratories, we can treat either the aspect of recycling these batteries or reusing them in other purposes, like what we will see with Mr. Smail said later on how this technology can be promoted. We're talking about the use of this waste that we gathered from our living lab and other type of projects to support this movement of EOL introduction. So for the EOL living labs, in coping with sister project LibRE, the main roadmap is here to collect, recycle, and implement a business model that goes from research to demonstration and also to creating a startup at the end of the lifespan. So we're talking about the life cycle management, which is promoted, and the technical and economical assessment of this use case. So the main goal and target here and the role of Green Energy Park is to spot these waste points and gather them, treat them, categorize all the coming assessment that would be done in order to support these living labs and the sustainability of these living labs. So we are talking about how we can get a type of collaboration measures within the stakeholders. For example, we're talking about the vendors, the main vendors and contractors that we had implemented in these living labs, and how we can can gather these batteries that are at the end of the lifespan, and then be supportive to the LEAP RE project and other type of projects that goes beyond exploring the use case, but also treating the end of life management. So we had some high recovery yield that were achieved, for example, for the lithium, the nickel, the cobalt, etc., that can be regenerated and developing other type of innovative batteries based on lithium. So this is the main goal and the main aspect here in Morocco. We shall note that also Green Energy Park use energy storage system. We have what we call Demosthenes, the renovation of Demosthenes also. And we have several households here, or what we call smart microgrid in Green Energy Park, which is located at the Green and Smart Building Park platform, in which we treat this matters, and we try to do our best to facilitate the roadmap of end-of-life management and support this green transition, and support the access for energy in Africa. So this is it. If you have any other type of questions, feel free to address them to me or the host. Thank you so much. Esther, we are yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Thanks very much for sharing the work that you're doing and the insights of using the second life batteries. I think we do have a question or two, maybe.
Can you please come again?
I believe we have a question.
Yeah, there's a question on the battery safety side. So what approaches you're using to address the issue of battery safety?
Okay.
Yes, Zachariah.
Okay, and let me go back to the chats. About the battery safety, what approach are you using to address the battery safety? Okay, so for the battery safety, we are talking about a different aspect, which is can be related to the use or related to the technical component of the batteries. As a globe, we can talk about these two main aspects: how we use, how we optimize, what are the proper types of use of this battery, how we can like connect them to the pilots, what are the let's say, what are the great processes or the much performing processes to connect these batteries, how we can, for example, you see that here in Morocco, we have a arid, semi-arid conditions, which means that the temperature is high at a certain level. So how can monitor this type of environmental KPIs and keep track of them, and how we use them in this difficult type of environments. So this is the main goal here, and supporting the digitalization here roadmap in Green Energy Park, we can address the monitoring of this complex system and give the user a quick overview about the state of health, for example, of the battery, how it's doing in terms of performances, how we can cope with the, for example, energy management systems in stable plants, for example, solar plants, how we can optimize the use of these batteries, how we can promote this integration, because you know the investment relative to the batteries are so high till now in Africa. So we try to keep track, optimize, and give the user a proper overview of the energy storage system health to maintain this type of expensive storage, and know how to cope with that. I hope I answered your question.
Maybe the question also relates, but I'm assuming a little bit here, also relates to when you have the end-of-life batteries and you are working to repurpose them for another application. How are you able to cover the safety aspects during that process? And we have a follow-up question after that.
For the recycling of the batteries profitability, we will see in-depth overview with Mr. Smail Sadoun, who coped with us and coordinated all the aspects relative to end-of-life management, and he will give us a quick overview about the expensive metals that are being recovered and how we can treat them in regenerating new innovative lithium-based batteries.
Okay. Thank you, Zakaria. And as to Ismail's point in chat, some of the questions that zooming in a little bit more on that can be answered during one of the discussions later on, where Ismail is joining us.
Okay. Yeah. Can I? Yes. Yes, some of the question in the chat could be answered. I will give you my answer to this question later.
Okay, excellent. Are there any other questions? I was referring to the technical handling of batteries to avoid issues related to the potential fire outbreaks. Is that something that will come up with your presentation or information, Ismail?
Yeah. I can cover that, but I can also answer when my session starts.
Okay, let's do that. I hope that's okay, Claire. And but please remind me if you think remind us if you think your question wasn't answered entirely. Are there any other questions? I think I see one from Jeffrey. You spoke of a very high yield in material recovery during recycling. Could you elaborate more on the processes involved? Mechanical and chemical recovery.
Esther, I propose that I start my presentation so some of the question could be seen in my presentation, but I don't like to disturb your presentation.
Yes, let's hold off on these questions until we dive into it a little bit more during the discussion.
Okay.
And then I would ask the people who are asking the questions, if you feel your question hasn't been answered, please make sure that we touch on them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me share my, well, I can think we can move on to our next guest presenter from the South Africa Living Lab. Ushveer, can you start sharing your screen? Can I hand over the floor to
yes. You? I'm gonna share it right now.
Thank you, and welcome.
Okay, thank you. Hi everyone. I'm Ushveer Ramsa. I am going to be presenting on the SESA Living Lab in South Africa on behalf of the ULO e-mobility program. So our living lab is a 100% renewable facility which uses solar energy that is stored in second life EV batteries to provide energy to microelectric vehicles as well as to the community. The living lab is also used as a facility for solar installation training, as well as it provides an info hub with internet access to the community. The container contains 3 POCO any-grid hybrid inverters that are connected in parallel to our 3 10.2 kilowatt second life EV batteries, providing a total storage of 30.6 kilowatt hours. A little image of our living lab is in the slide here, so you can see our 2 electric vehicles and our living lab with the solar grid above it. Our solar grid provides a total of 20 kilowatt at peak for the living lab. Second life batteries. What are second life batteries? Second life batteries are batteries that can be repurposed for different applications after their initial life cycle. These batteries have about 70 to 80% residual capacity, which makes them viable for stationary storage in combination with renewable energy such as solar, which is being used in our living lab. The future plan of our living lab is that the SESA Living Lab is going to be used as a ground to provide data and proof of concept that second life batteries in combination with solar energy can be used as alternatives power sources for underprivileged communities. The data from the Living Lab is going to be used as stepping stones to develop future living labs to come in poorer communities in South Africa. Some of the challenges that we experience in our Living Lab is connectivity, especially with GSM and LTE connectivity during load shedding. So South Africa currently has a big issue with power provided from the grid, which causes connectivity powers since our LTE and GSM towers go down. So the Living Lab in those periods then lose connectivity for the community. So that is a challenge that we are trying to get past with the community and with the service providers. And the second challenge that we experience is that our Living Lab is currently producing a surplus of energy. We are in investigations to use the surplus energy, but currently we still trying to figure out what's the second options that we can use. Thank you. Perfect. That's my presentation. So if there's any questions here, you can ask me.
Thank you, Shreya. I do have a question. I'm not sure if we have questions from the audiences. Maybe one of my colleagues can highlight those. But I have a question. You mentioned there's some investigation going on what the business models might be or use cases might be for the surplus energy of the second life batteries.
Correct.
What do you suppose are maybe some of the main challenges or questions that you're facing?
When it comes to the business models for the surplus data?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to pass that question on to Edom, our director. She actually has the business model questions. Yeah, so she will answer that question for you.
I'll just switch on my camera. You don't have
Sorry to put you on the spot, Edom.
No problem. Yeah, Edom is actually next to me. She was prepped for this part of the questionnaire.
Okay, I'm not sure. Can colleagues hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So yes, Ashleigh is absolutely correct. There is a surplus of energy at the moment. So we are looking at several potential possibilities. The one major one which seems to be coming up when we have consultations with the community is that since we're having regular power cuts in terms of load shedding, if there is a possibility for them, for example, to come and charge their various equipments at the Living Lab, and then possibly we look at some kind of fee structure for when they come and charge their any type of equipment that they may have at the facility. So we're just trying to look and see what type of equipment they would need to charge. Is it just your normal cell phones? Is it like a power banks, for example, that they just want to charge? That would be easy. Or is it like bigger forms of equipment that they would want to charge? So that's one that is coming out. And then through our peer exchanges with our other Living Labs, we also are going to look at what they are doing with their surplus energy and looking at ways that we can use the surplus energy. But one which seems to be coming out is that how do we share the energy from the Living Lab with the community during periods where there is no energy supplied by the utility grid. And judging from what we have been seeing lately within the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy in South Africa is that load shedding is going to continue for a while, at least for another, experts are saying 10 years, but the South African government is saying 5 years. So somewhere in between 5 to 10 years, load shedding will be continuing. And what business opportunities are there available where we can look at sharing that energy with the community, and obviously not at an exorbitant cost, because these are people who are living in rural communities, but something that is affordable and feasible, that the community members would be willing to pay for.
Okay, so that centers more around the question of applicable cases and what the affordability is. Can I gather that from a technical point of view, the use of the second life batteries and the capacity they have, they are sufficient to be able to provide the opportunities to create business models in addition to the mobility one that you have ongoing?
Yes, correct. I'll also ask Ashria to also just confirm that as well.
Yes, that is true. So it just depends. So the big factor that plays is the fact that obviously our living lab has a maximum capacity that can be drawn from it. So we're also trying to develop a system that can split that power equally amongst everyone. So we don't just get someone that comes in and takes a bulk of the power that we have stored for random use, and then there is community people that need rechargeable lights to be charged up, or their cell phones, etc. So that's the idea. It's more just trying to balance out who uses the power, and as well as how much of power gets drawn, because obviously if you pull a lot of power to the inverters, it would cause damage and issues in the long run. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. I think we've got some questions come in from the audience as well, so let's move to them. I see two questions, one from Ubuntu and Jeffrey, relating to the numbers or the number of living labs that there are currently, and the potential for scaling up, and if people can also get in touch to participate, perhaps. I think they cover
Yes.
both the topic of scaling up.
Yeah, so the number of living labs, currently there are a few different service providers that have these living labs up and running. I don't have an exact number of what's in SA. I can actually get that details to him if he needs that. But the idea, as I said, with the SESA and Velo Group, is to prove that we can provide these living labs for communities that are in need of power. So that was the whole idea of building the living lab and generating the data to ensure that, okay, we can provide these communities with power, as well as what would be needed to be put into the living lab. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then maybe a follow-up question from that, if I understand it correctly. Another question from Jeffrey. How did you determine the location or the positioning of the lab, considering that you now have excess energy that needs to be supplied, or going through a value chain?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. I can answer that question. So I'm sure, as people know, the Republic of South Africa, it's a very interesting and complicated country. There's a lot of factors resulting from the previous dispensation. Historically, disadvantaged communities from the past, specifically looking at communities of color. So we took that into consideration when we were looking at the community as well, looking at historically disadvantaged communities within the Eastern Cape, also looking at the safety aspect within those communities as well, and also looking at community buy-in. So of all the communities that we scanned, in terms of community buy-in, where people will not steal the things, the equipment of the lab, where people will treat the living lab as it was their own, where people would support the activities of the living lab, and also where community buy-in in terms of the local government of the Eastern Cape and the provincial government of the Eastern Cape and the national government as well. So that's how it was chosen. So South Africa is not a simple country. When choosing projects, we have to take all that into consideration. And if we don't, chances are either the equipment will be vandalized, it will be stolen, or the community will not support the project and it will become a white elephant. So
Okay.
we went through all those processes before choosing that community.
So those are the primary criteria that you explore in selecting a location, and then you look at matching the capacity needs to follow the capacity needed from second life batteries to follow what you
Yes.
can and do in use cases for the local community.
Yes.
So that's perhaps related to the question of, okay, so now you have excess energy, you look at that from an opportunity perspective to see what else you can do for the community instead of, okay.
Yes.
I hope that answers the question.
I just wanna say something towards the excess energy. The Living Lab does have excess energy, but also one of the key factors is that because this is an underprivileged community, a lot of people don't understand what the Living Lab is. So there's also those factors that play with the excess energies, because people don't understand that they can go to the lab and charge up their devices, etc., or what the lab provides. So that's also what we are trying to do with the Info Hub and the training center as well, is to educate the community of what solar energy is and renewable energy is and what it can do for the community. So yeah.
Okay. Very good. I do see two more questions, if I didn't miss any others. And maybe, I don't know if Zakaria is still around as well. One of these questions from Vishant could get both your perspectives on it, assuming that the cost for second life batteries is lower today compared with new stationary storage batteries. I'm not sure that applies in every situation, but do you have any forecasts of how much lower this may be in the future, considering your living lab future plans?
Yeah. Okay. So to be honest, I don't have a forecast of the batteries being lower or an estimate, but I mean, it is something that is becoming more and more available. So due to the fact of there being more second life batteries coming into the economy, the price does reduce. And I have seen that recently, especially with the Chinese market coming in on the second life EV batteries with stationary storage, that the cost of battery packs have reduced quite drastically. So yes, it can decrease in future, or actually could increase due to demand and supply, but that's more of an economical related
It's hard to
question.
predict. Hard to predict entirely, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
But you see developments that are indicative of perhaps reducing those costs even more, assuming there are no other factors that disrupt that. Zakaria,
Yep.
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
So, as I said, this question relative to the pricing would be surely answered by Mr. Ismail, but
Okay.
let me talk about something. It is the reuse of EV batteries as a stationary option or alternative options for cost reduction, which is mainly promoting the reuse of this type of expensive technology. Like I said before, in the African continent, we have still high rates of batteries, or the high pricing rate. So one of the types that we can think of is the reuse of the what we call end-of-life EV batteries as a stationary option. It will be always in the table. regarding the process of recycling, etc. So we will see in depth with Mr. Ismail. I know he will be answering this question in the presentation, so just to keep track of that.
Let's do that.
Yeah, thanks.
I see one general question remaining, which maybe we can briefly answer, but also see a hand raised from Charles. Maybe you have a view on some of the topics and questions raised. Do you want to jump in briefly? We have maybe a little bit of time before we head to the discussion sections.
Yes, thank you, Esther. Thank you, Adam and Ushver, for the help. I pronounced that correctly. Thank you for the presentation. My question was rather on the sizing. Is it a sizing system when you say you have excess energy? Is it that your use case appliances are not being used, so then you have a lot of excess energy? Or is it generally, what really is it, and what implications does this have on your batteries, and what type of batteries are you using? Are you using lithium ion reused batteries, or are you using, I'm not sure that you can do this for lead acid. Are you using lead acid hope we can deep cycle batteries? So what type of batteries are you using?
Okay, so on the excess of power, it's more, the Living Lab was spec'd to have extra power that would be used by the community. But the use of that power is now not at the same scale as it was spec'd for. So the main draw of power at the Living Lab is the 2 electric vehicles that are there. And then the subsidiary that's used by the training center as well as then the community. So I think it's more the excess of power that we have right now is just the lack of use by the community or the actual applications that it's being used for. So that's the reasons for the excess energy, but that's where EDM is coming in with the business plans or the business models to figure out how we can use that excess energy, because we have that power available, so we should use it. With regards to the batteries that are in there, the batteries are second life lithium ion batteries that are being used. So as I did say in my presentation, so it's 3 5.2 kilowatt hour battery packs connected in parallel, so totaling a 30.6 kilowatt hour facility.
Yes, thank you, Ushver. So might it be interesting just to see the behavior of the batteries, since they're recycled and they're sitting stationary, this excess power, and just learn what are the reactions, in what state are they? Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, pleasure.
Okay, thank you, Ushver, Zakaria, and the people asking the questions. Maybe wrap up with one last question that is more for the project related, and then we can head into the discussions. Question from Mariana, for the project, do you plan to expand to other countries, or do you imagine somehow to have first these hubs as the hubs and encourage other countries to work with them? Would be very valuable to have this infrastructure accessible for different geographies. That really touches on, I think, the heart of what SESA project is we, and I mean all the partners in the project, we have 9 active labs in 9 different countries, and some of them have more than one location. They focus on different use cases. Most, all relate to energy access, and quite a few of them focus on second life batteries or include second life batteries for that use. The general purpose is that the project focuses on getting these hubs and the use cases right and learning from that process while doing it, and learning. Take those learnings and insights and to translate that into information to share with others who want to undertake similar types of activities. And at the same time, the partners that are involved with these living labs, they are, of course, also companies, startups, and other forms of entrepreneurs that, they are well, free, I would say. If they want to expand to different countries or different locations, they can. The focus for the project is to learn from the ones that we have within the project. I hope that answers it. And that information is shared through various channels, including the SESA toolbox and the various liaisons we have with the university campus, of course, for all sorts of training modules, and the SESA project website itself. I think that wraps up our section on the living labs. We will continue on these topics through the discussion sessions. So let me start sharing my screen for a moment to introduce the session. Here we go. That should be it. So our first discussion matter will focus on how do businesses see the future potential of second life batteries. And sorry, my apologies. So I would like to thank to the SESA partners for their information about the living labs. Understandably, we can see that the second life batteries are a relatively young product to provide solutions. And as an entrepreneur, you can come across some interesting challenges and questions. We can see that some of them are technical, but some of them are much more human related or policy related. But this is why with our first panel discussion, we have two innovative entrepreneurs invited as our guests, Leandro Berwa from SLS Energy in Rwanda, and Samuel Asare from Nestec Power Solutions in Ghana. Welcome. Please, to our audience, briefly introduce yourself, your company, and your work in the SESA project. If you would like to share something on screen while doing that, feel free. I will stop sharing. Leandro, can you start, perhaps?
Yeah, thank you so much, Esther. And hi, everyone. I'm so happy to have this opportunity to speak up to you about our work in second life batteries in Rwanda. So SLS Energy is a startup based out in Kigali, Rwanda, and we are focused on building a circular economy for batteries. And this is due to the huge influx of batteries coming from renewable energy products and electric mobility applications. And these batteries tend to get retired, as the previous speakers mentioned, with enough storage capacity to be used for other stationary applications. So what we are doing is taking these batteries, we are assessing their state of health to understand their suitability for a second life use case. And we are deploying them for these multiple second life applications, be it in telecom towers and mini grids. And we are doing this to ensure reliability of power supply and also to reduce the cost of energy storage for these off-grid applications. And we are not just focused on the product development itself, we are also innovating on the business model, where we are providing these batteries on what we call battery as a service. And that helps that you can make batteries more accessible and available for the end user. And this can also make it possible to control or manage the technical challenge that go with second life batteries. So by keeping ownership and investing in visibility and monitoring, granular monitoring of the second life batteries in the applications, we will be able to optimize them for both performance and lifetime, but also for safety. So the work we're doing with SESA is to be able to replicate this product, this business model in other use cases. And we are happy to share that we're making progress on this already, and we'll be happy to share outcomes and the results for this in the near future. Thanks so much. That's a general background on our work. I'll be happy to take on other questions as we go.
So How do you see the potential scale-up opportunities for your business to grow in the national or perhaps even international markets? Is that something that you are already exploring or perhaps active undertaking active measures there?
Yes, definitely. And I would say that the potential scale up for this business and product is directly linked to the also scale up of this electric mobility adoption. So there's a huge boom in terms of electric motorcycles, especially in the East African region. And these motorcycles are always doing the taxi business. So that makes it that their batteries tend to get retired like very soon, still having enough usable capacity due to power requirements that are not being met in the mobility application. So according to the International Energy Agency predictions, 100 gigawatt hours of batteries are expected to be retired by 2030. And this kind of shows how much energy storage is going to be there available in the market to be used for second life applications. So in terms of international scale up, there's still a few challenges around movement of batteries from different markets to others, especially in terms of second life batteries. And some of these challenges can be addressed around standardization of these products and also securing licenses to be able to transport these batteries in various methods. So we are actively working around this. We are actively monitoring the supply of these second life batteries, where is going to be the demand coming from, where is going to be the use cases from, looking at the various challenges in terms of cost of energy storage and adoption of off-grid applications in different African countries. So we're very interested to map out where these batteries will be mostly effectively channeled and have maximized the climate, social, and economic impact in the future.
Is it fair to say then that because what questions would be what are the main challenges that you face, that some of these main challenges are really becoming relevant when you are looking at the potential for scale up?
Definitely. So I mentioned the challenge in terms of like the supply chain and the movement of these batteries, but there's also other challenges in terms of having visibility or traceability of batteries, like where they are produced, where they're being used, and when do we expect them to get retired, with what quality and in what quantity. So having these visibilities also are still a bit of a challenge, so that you can have an effective inventory planning and projections where these batteries can be used.
Okay. I think there are some questions in chat, but let's bring in our other guest as well. Samuel from NASDAQ, can you join us and also introduce yourself, your company, and your activities, your work in the SESA project, please?
Yeah, hello. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Samuel Asari of NASDAQ Power Solutions, and NASDAQ is part of the SESA project. We are in Ghana. We are implementing, as part of our contribution to the SESA project, we are implementing microgrids using second life batteries from lithium ions, the lithium ion batteries that are collected from mostly computer, laptops, and other electronic gadgets. And then we propose them to develop battery banks that are used to serve as energy storage for microgrid applications in off-grid communities in Ghana. So far we have about 2 microgrids that are currently active, and 1 which is also currently in the process of being commissioned. Aside that, also we have individualized solar energy models that are developed from these second life batteries and are given to also people in rural communities on a subscription basis. So mostly in communities that we cannot deploy a microgrid, like smaller communities where the population there doesn't require us to deploy a microgrid, we deploy individual modular solar energy systems, so that everyone in even remote communities can also have access to the solutions. Our approach has been to collect the batteries, repurpose them. So we actually take them through a series of processes to check about their efficiency, their viability, whether they could be used for a repurposing activity for a second life. And then also we consider their safety aspect of it also, so that in case of, they have already gone through a series of life in usage for other applications. So when we are going to repurpose them for other purposes, like the use in the solar generators, we have to also consider safety. So we have to really check up on their safety, take them through a series of processes to ensure that the batteries are good enough to be repurposed. and then we take them, we use that to develop the battery banks for the second life applications. Then the ones that are not good or which are not able to pass our test, then we take those ones to end of life stages, end of life processes to go through recycling. So that is what we have been doing so far. So we currently have for the current project that we have done, which is the microgrid, we currently have about 22 subscribers on the system currently who are using the electricity from the village, and we're also monitoring how the system efficiency is also working. We go there occasionally to check up on the batteries, to also monitor it remotely, and then do all the necessary checks to ensure that the batteries are safe and they are performing optimally at the field. And then also those who we provide the modular systems also, because it's a subscription-based approach that we have deployed. Mostly what we do for the safety is that occasionally we go there, pick up the machine, give them a new machine, and then bring the old one they are using there, and then check up on it, whether everything is all right. We check up on and do maintenance on the system, and then later we deploy it back again. And then, so that is how we are trying to work on managing the batteries, so that, because we know the batteries have a higher risk of explosion when they are not well maintained. So we have to ensure that maintenance on the batteries are very well taken care of, and to prevent any unforeseen circumstances with explosions with the second life usage. So far that is what we have been doing at Nasdaq Power Solutions, and I'll be happy to receive your questions.
I think maybe we can tie it to one or two of the audience questions here, is in terms of also the question around the main challenges. And an earlier question is around the handling of the safe handling of the end-of-life batteries to repurpose. What do you think in terms of the OPEX levels? A question from Aston, for example, imagining that maintenance costs might be high, is elements from managing the safe handling or the potential additional maintenance that is required by second life battery use, is that some of the things that you found challenging in setting up your businesses around it? Samuel first, maybe.
Okay. All right. So yes, one of the challenge with the batteries is also regards to the maintenance. So because of the maintenance, sometimes we are restricted to how long we can go for the distance we can take for deploying the battery. So we consider people who are very closer to us, so that when it comes to maintenance, we'll be able to reach them easily. So that is how we have been trying to handle that particular aspect of it. So we have people calling from other regions in Ghana. For instance, in Ghana, we have the Ashanti region, the Northern region, and other regions like Greater Accra. And then we are based in the Ashanti region. So we will have a client calling you from, say, the Northern region or the Volta region, and they want the service that we are providing. But we know because of maintenance reasons, you will not be able to deploy the system to that far locations. So we are restricted because of that to operate only within the region that we have currently. And then subsequently, what we are looking forward to doing is that if we are going to deploy systems to that far regions, you look at how many customers we are going to likely get within those areas. Then we would set up a maintenance center within those areas, so that will take care of the challenges that are faced within that particular region. So that is what we are thinking of doing. But currently, because of the challenge with associating with the distance that we can cover in terms of maintenance, going forth and back and forth with, especially when people have issues, we are restricted to operating only within that region.
So is it fair to conclude there then, for your experience at least, that the costs that come with additional maintenance has more to do about the scale up and the distances where you can provide that service than actually the state of health of the batteries, because of being second life, that it requires more maintenance? Is that something that you've noticed, the latter?
Yeah, no, not necessarily. So the batteries, before we deploy them, we take them through series of checks. We make sure that they are good before we take them there. And then also there's a battery management system on each battery that we deploy that actually protect the batteries from any form of safety issues. So in case of if the batteries detect high temperature, it will automatically shut it down so that it avoids explosion. If the battery detects any form of malware within the operations of the battery, it automatically protects it so that it doesn't go through that particular stage of damage. So all those checks are done, and all those safety measures are also put in place to protect the batteries and also ensure that the batteries are able to perform at least up to the number of years that it can work on the system. So all those safety checks are done. The only challenge that we face currently is the fact that though you have done all these, taking all these measures to ensure that the batteries are working, you will still need to physically inspect the batteries occasionally to make sure that, okay, the data we are getting is actually corresponding to the safety of the battery. So we have to go and check up on the system and make sure that it's working well, everything is in order. Yeah. And that is why the distance that we have to
comes into play. Yes. Yeah, I can understand. Leandre, is that similar to what your experiences is, or do you have other things that you've come across maybe?
Yeah. So in addition to what Samuel just described, I would also add that there are a few tech solutions to go around these challenges, operational challenges with second life batteries. One of them being like monitoring, like ensuring that we have like granular visibility on what the battery pack is doing down to a cell level. So typical battery monitoring solutions are looking at the pack level, but in our case, we want to see what's the current rate, what's the voltage level and the temperature situation for each battery cell, so that you understand how best to operate these batteries to keep them in safe operating margins. And this is also comes into like the BMS, the battery management system described earlier. Typically understanding that there's mismatches introduced in the battery pack. These mismatches are in terms of state of health of the batteries, because with second life batteries, you cannot find like uniform battery cells to put in a single pack. That means like you are intentionally introducing mismatches in terms of discharge capacity and internal resistance in the packs. So the BMS can be used to have more intelligent or more aggressive balancing algorithms, so that like how do I support like the weakest cell in the pack, or how do I use the strongest cell in the pack to make sure the whole pack can stay at optimal operating levels. So these technology solutions can help alleviate some of the operational challenges around the batteries by having confidence in the visibility and understanding of what each cell is doing, and also having more protection or adapted protection and balancing algorithm implemented in the BMS.
Sounds good. And what about sorry. What about the challenges around the scale up? Is that something that you are looking into, or perhaps even that you see additional opportunities because of what you've learned so far?
Yeah, so in our case, how we are looking around scale up, I mentioned already some challenges in terms of like movement of these products, especially cross-border movement. So like currently we have a project in Nigeria. We are working with an electronic waste management company in Lagos. And how we approach this is since batteries can be sourced locally, like in every country where there's like a new waste or life management facilities, we can work with these people to make sure like we have access to a local stock of batteries. And then we focus on these optimization processes, like, okay, there are batteries available in mostly every city. How do I help these people to understand the state of health of the batteries? And how do I leverage our build technology so that we can adapt the configuration for what these batteries can be designed for to be used? And because you're also producing like the kits to put together these batteries in a second life application, that means like the movement will be more around like the assembly kits and the software, but the batteries can be sourced locally. So this is something we are looking into and seeming promising to in this situation of scaling up across borders.
Okay, thank you very much. I hear a lot of really interesting things going on with what you guys are doing, and you are learning a lot from, excuse me, from all your endeavors. I think we have one last question from Ismail, who I would like to bring in, and then we can move into our next discussion point afterwards, where there's more opportunity to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. I have a question to Leandro, but also to Samuel. As we know, the big challenge is how to collect the end-of-life batteries that are not organized in Africa. This is a big challenge. The second one is, are you dismantling the battery from vehicles, sorting and checking the state of health before building new models for any other application, or what are you doing exactly in your startups, please? Thank you.
I could go first if you don't mind, Samuel. Responding to how we collect these batteries, as I mentioned, like we are working closely with e-waste management companies, because many cities, speaking of, let's say, like Kigali, Nairobi, like Lagos, there's these e-waste management companies that have figured out the logistics of collecting like electronic waste across different cities. And like they have like collection centers in these places, and we can only get the batteries in a single location. So this has proved to be very efficient for us to avoid the logistical challenges of having like collection fleets and getting battery off the hands of like individual people. But through working with e-waste companies, we're able to go around it. And for your question, if you get to dismantle the packs to get to each individual cell, yes, that's a process we are doing now to have access to be able to determine like the state of health of the batteries. And this is in terms of both the discharge capacity remaining and also the internal resistance. But as I mentioned, if you're able to have visibility on what the batteries are doing in a first life by having performance data, like we are looking into how we can skip this step of like dismantling and testing each individual cell, because it's one of the time and resource consuming step in the process. So by leveraging these like performance data, we are able to predict aging and understand the state of health of the batteries at retirement. I hope that answers your question. Can get a follow-up question if you like.
Leandro, do you want to have a last thought on that, Samuel?
Yeah, so for us, the sourcing, we mostly deal with computer repair shops, mostly because the batteries that we are using are from computer laptops. So we get arrangement with computer repair shops that stores the dead batteries for us, and then we get that from them. We also deal with individual collectors. So they are smaller waste collection companies in Ghana that goes house to house to collect waste, electron mostly. So we have an arrangement with them also, so that they also bring the batteries to us. So we have that kind of arrangement with people, collectors, who mostly goes to the residences of people to collect electronic waste in general and other waste. And then when they get the batteries, they bring the batteries to us. We also have go to the repair shops and computer repair shops. Then also they also keep the batteries for us. When the batteries come, for us, we dismantle the batteries and then we take the individual cells, check every cell, and then monitor each cell's performance and check whether they can be used for second life applications. So every cell is checked, and then their internal resistance, voltage, and current, everything is taken, and then each cell is marked. So that finally, then we put all the cells based on the data that we have collected from each cells. We use that to build new packs from the cells that have been already collected. And then these cells then goes into be used to develop the battery banks for the general second life repurposing applications. So that's how we go about the batteries.
Thank you, Samuel.
Okay. So, sorry, I was just trying to respond to a question on the chat. But thanks for those insights, Leandro and Samuel. Unfortunately, this is all the time that we have for this discussion. There's plenty of food for thought, I think, and we possibly could continue talking about it a lot more, but it's time to move on to our next panel discussion and the next discussion topic of today. And I would like to hand over to Annika Berlin as the moderator of this discussion. And just a brief introduction of Annika. Annika has more than 10 years experience working in the international development arena for several bilateral and multilateral organizations. currently working at UNEP and focusing on aspects around transport, urban development, and climate change projects across many of the sub-Saharan countries, and in Latin America, Eastern Europe, and even in Asia. Quite a feat. Annika, over to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Esther, and also for organizing this webinar. No, as you know, we are a partner of the SESA project, and very happy to have this topic of end of life of batteries focused here, because at UNEP we have a global electric mobility program where we work not only on the policy side, which of course our main mandate, but also a lot on supporting countries and companies in developing e-mobility projects. And we are developing a new program on the end of life of EV batteries. So this is a very timely webinar. So also good for me to learn more what's already happening on the ground, and also see how we can support, of course, from the policy side. But given that we're already very short on time, I think let's dive right into the next discussion session, which is around exactly the policy and regulatory aspect around the use of second life electric vehicle batteries. And for that, I'm very excited. We have two speakers. So I think Ismail, he's already been active in the webinar. So thanks again also for taking the time to be with us. And as a second panelist, I have Raymond Sarr from Yokosan. Thanks a lot also for being here. And yeah, to not lose any more time, I think I'll give it quickly over to Ismail to briefly introduce himself and share his insights on battery use and recycling, and then move over to Raymond. Thank you.
Okay. Everything is okay. Thank you very much. You get my presentation, I guess.
Yes, we have it here. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm electrochemist, so I will give you some insight on battery component and reuse and recycling, as mentioned before by Zakaria. We are doing some, just make some how to say, some reminder. A battery, lithium-ion battery, you know, the market is growing drastically. And then this means that we will have two big challenges in the future. We have to provide raw material to meet with these challenges. And also we will have some big environmental issue, because end-of-life lithium battery have big impact on groundwater quality. So recycling should be a priority for many organizations. So lithium-ion battery is composed very briefly from graphite in anode and with copper, and cathode materials in aluminum. So graphite is everywhere, but the cathode material depend on the chemistry, depend on the company. You can have NMC, this means that the cathode is composed from nickel, manganese, and cobalt, or NCA, nickel, cobalt, and aluminum, or LFP, or LMU, and so on. And the cost of the battery, of course, is mainly due to this cathode material, more than 35%. This means that nickel, cobalt, manganese, lithium, and so on became a critical and strategic metals in the future. And all people are now looking for such metals to make business, but also to meet this energy transition or ecological transition. So what's the end of life of battery? We showed that when at the starting phase, you have 100% capacity of your battery, but when we reach 80%, this means that your battery is died, is the end of life of the first use of your battery. So between 80 to 30%, we have this second life of battery that you can use in stationary application for solar or so on. And when you reach less than 30% of your battery, then your battery is died, is end of life of use of your batteries. Just to remind, we talked about this. We have your pack is composed from modules, and modules are composed from cells and so on. And what I described before is the cells, but the chemistry inside the pack is the chemistry inside the cell. So the second life of battery is between 80 to 70 and 30%, as I said before. And then when your pack is over, is like 80% of capacity, we have to evaluate individually the models to check which one is normally is died, but there are some, in some cases, that some models are still working, and then we can use these models in new application stationary. After that, inside the models, we can check also the state of health of cells, and then some of the health could be okay, and then we can use it, the cells, in new models to be used in small scooters, small engine, or something like that. But when your battery is died, normally we should develop a process to recycle. Just to give you some brief things, we have this new critical raw materials, as I said before, with lithium, graphite, nickel, manganese, and cobalt, and a lot of the cost of, as you see, is really huge, and a lot of companies now are performing the recycling process. Is like a mine to recover these strategic materials. A new target is to rise to 20% for recycled cobalt, 10% for lithium, and 12% for nickel for the next produced electrical vehicles. So the question was in the chat, what are the process to recover these metals? There are a lot of process. We have this pyrometallurgic, hydrometallurgic, biometallurgic, and so on. But the main things that you should mention, that we should perform the adequate process to be upscaled in the future. And I think hydrometallurgy will be the best one. So this is what we are developing in Mohammed VI Polytechnic University in collaboration with Green Energy Park. We are recovering some end-of-life battery from a scooter company, EMOB, and then this part is very important because batteries is like a bomb. And if you don't manage this battery safely, you can have some big problem. So this should be discharging very efficiently and then dismantling to separate plastic, separator, and metallic shell, and then we can recover the anode side. Remember, we have graphite at that side, and the cathode side, we have nickel, cobalt, and manganese. And we developed some chemical process to recover copper and graphite, cobalt, nickel, manganese, lithium, and aluminum, all components in the battery. And we are using such material to build new cells to be used as cells for modules and then to pack maybe with this circularity approach. So this is what I have to say. We have more information in our two publications, published in 2023. You can check, but also I am here to answer to your question. That's all from my presentation, and the floor is yours.
Great, thanks a lot, Ismail. That was actually a very great introductory presentation to the topic. So thanks a lot for this overview, and maybe you can post even the link to the papers in the chat for people that want to read more. But now, and then you can still post your questions in the chat, and we can take them afterwards. But now I would like to give the floor first to Raymond to give us a bit on a perspective on Senegal from Yokosan. What is your company doing? And also maybe you can at the same time also answer the question how you see the role of policy, let's say from the national level, to sort of help your business to be profitable and to safely operate in the local market. Over to you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Annika. Thank you for the wonderful presentation from Ismail, Esther, and Leandre, Samuel. My name is Raymond Sarr. I am in Senegal. My company, Jokosan, is active in energy transition since the beginning. We made, let's say, it is a company who made, let's say, all the steps, more operational steps on the field, starting from solar paygo to now being a leader in electric mobility on waterways, which is quite a new activity, and active also in solar, in the solar industry. To date, we have many challenges, but what I can say is that at the beginning, when I created the company 5 years ago, my first objective was to fight against batteries waste, but it was too difficult at that time. So it's a kind of this webinar is a kind of comeback to my initial questioning when I created the company. So to date we have a lot of constraint regarding the battery use. There is either a lack of data, either a lack of security, either any other let's say logistics problem that we experience here on the field. So our main challenge to date to come to this question of recycling. Let's say we are doing it step by step. The first step is to ensure that the intensive usage we have on the battery is correctly monitored, and even if you want to move it from intensive to moderate usage, so the second life of the battery, we make it in an entire security process. And to date, we didn't manage to make it very well. It is logistically, as Samuel, for example, showed, to deal with that properly at our level. So to me, this subject is quite important. And regarding the policy, so I'm not an expert on policy, but there are some general guidelines I can give regarding it has to be regional first. So there are some view to see on the standardization and harmonization. So yeah, we need to develop and implement standardized regulation for battery management. It seems obvious, but how to make it properly? It's a kind of doing it in a regional collaboration stuff. There is also the capacity building. We are Jokusen with our company in solar and electric mobility on waterways. We are really investing on capacity building. So invest in training programs, because all of this we are talking about can be only by a skilled workforce in recycling and repurposing facilities, because there are a lot of challenges inside. For example, training initiative for workers on safe and efficient battery handling. It seems obvious also, but this training program initiative either don't exist, either don't have the echo they deserve today regarding the battery business challenge. There is also a lot of challenge regarding information sharing. To date, we need to establish, let's say, mechanism for sharing information and best practice for the sub-regional countries. For example, regarding regional conferences on sustainable battery management. It is something obvious again, but it's something you have to move on, to move on. Yeah. So added to that, there are a lot of plenty of action possible regarding public awareness campaign. It is also obvious. So the regulatory enforcement. Sorry, my English. I speak a lot of French. So strengthen enforcement mechanism at the sub-regional level. So for example, implement stringent penalties for non-compliance with battery management regulation. Okay, it's the bad side, but we have to go to that because the battery is a real issue for us. So to resume all of that, I can say we need to make a coordinated efforts at the sub-regional level. That's the key. We are talking from Morocco to South Africa to Rwanda to Senegal, but they are not a sustainable regional entities dealing with that with consistency. So this have to be pushed in order to foster sustainable practice, to make the role of contributing to a circular economy, and also include, this must include, let's say, the public health, because it is a public health problem. I started company Jokosan 5 years ago, because my first concern was about the public health. It has to be monitored with a lot of data. So my concern today is to find a way to make it in a regional initiative, and to collect maximum of data and to make capacity building. Thank you for listening me. I have a lot of questions regarding the use of a battery, from intensive to moderate to the recycling. It is the process which is quite important for our company. To date, we are using we are on the intensive use with electric mobility. We are on the stationary use with the solar energy and the storage, but there is a link missing to make it properly for the recycling of the battery today.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Raymond. Those were really, really important points. I think especially the points you raised around no awareness raising, because it's a public health issue, or could be a public health issue. The other important point you made around capacity building, I think this is also very important. No, the reskilling of workers. It's a it's a new different chemistries, new technologies, different quantities. So I think this is an important topic, and that's also something that projects like the SESA project or others can also maybe support with in developing training materials that can be then localized and then shared with local institutions, and of course also a big role of academia there. And I think the other very important point that you raised, I also want to get back to Professor Ismail, was the regional coordination. And I think this is a very important one, because many of the African markets are quite small, especially now if we talk about electric vehicles, right? Some countries have a couple of hundred electric vehicles. So to get to scale and to also get regional integration, I think this is very important. And there, my question would maybe be to Professor Ismail also, how he sees the role of, on the one side, sub-regional bodies, such as not the ECOWAS in West Africa, SADC, East African Community, others, and then maybe versus what African Union or the Africa Standardization Organization could play in helping on the one side to standardize batteries, the interoperability, and of course, mainly from the safety and shipping perspective, if we want to, for example, not recycle batteries from one country in another African country. So maybe just, if you can, this is in 1 minute, and then we hand over back to Esther. But I had less time for my discussion, so just want to give this last one to Professor Ismail.
Okay, I have a short question. I will give short answer. We are developing at University M6P the recycling process of battery and second life. Of course, we have a lot of collaboration with many African. I can cite Ivory Coast. And of course, we are open to collaborate with each African country, including those in SESA Consortium, but also in some individuals. So you are welcome. We can develop to common product. But my big issue, as I said before, is challenge is how to collect efficiently the end-of-life batteries. This is a big problem in Africa to be fixed. In policy, this is policy problem, I think.
I fully agree. And that's something I think that has to come more from the national level, right? If the batteries enter your country, and those extended producer responsibility policies, for example, to make sure, or have local producer responsibility organizations that make sure that the batteries that enter the country are accounted for. And then, of course, being managed and recycled and eventually disposed in a proper manner. And I think it's both from the exporting side and the importing side, right? Because I think also the markets that export these vehicles have to make sure that they can be traced with something like battery passports, things that are working on the Global Battery Alliance and other partners. But yeah, I wish we could continue, but I think I have to hand back over to Esther to close, as we're on top of the end of this webinar. So thanks a lot, Professor Ismail and Raymond, for sharing your insights. And yeah, I hope we can stay in touch, because I have more questions, I think others as well. So I think we're all sharing our contacts here and can continue discussion in another forum. Thank you, and back to you, Esther.
Sorry, we didn't want to unmute. Thank you so much, Annika, Ismail, and Raymond. Like with all of this related topics, we always run a little bit short on time. where you could discuss much more if we wanted to. I'm not sure if I'm sharing. Yes, I'm sharing. But with that, I would like to thank really everyone who joined us today, from our guests from the Living Labs to the guests from outside of the SESA projects, to discuss the different topics that we breached on today, but most importantly to our audience who joined us in this discussion and asked the various questions. I think just to quickly recap a little bit of the highlights that were mentioned here is that yes, the electrification is moving ahead in Africa, and storage is a critical element in that respect, and using second life batteries for this purpose brings a lot of opportunities, and therefore the demand of those batteries will increase. But the environmental conditions and different challenges in the local context will put some additional strain on these batteries, which contributes to the degradation to this aspect. This is something to consider when embarking on new initiatives in this. Which also needs to be considered when eventually it comes to the point where you need to deal with it from a waste perspective, but also the whole maintenance and management during in between. The repurposing and recycling of batteries are possible solutions, definitely here, but some shortcomings remain that require attention specifically, and that's the safety of the batteries during the state of health checks, the repurposing, purposing them actually in practice as part of the solutions. And from that perspective, you need to really consider that from what are the availability of upstream of the second life batteries, provision and availability of spare parts, what are the return of investments related to that, and how to optimize that through better monitoring that will be beneficial to the eventual business model around it. That brings us to the scale-up potential, which is in place, but a specific point that was mentioned that for scale-up, the maintenance becomes especially interesting to consider, and not particularly so just from a technical point of view, but also elements such as where your customer base is and considering the distance required to provide that maintenance service. And then we have maybe a last point here is that we need to involve the stakeholders that are much more to ensure that not just locally, but region or nationally, but more regionally, we can look at what policies can be put in place to improve some of the challenges that were mentioned earlier. And part of that is creation of the awareness of the implications of not utilizing the batteries properly, or taking advantage of the opportunities that they bring, and create a common understanding of what and how we can do elements best, whether it's technical, policy, or from a business modeling perspective. There's many more things that I can mention, but all of the outcomes of this webinar and the related training course, as well as the courses that SESA has developed on other topics, are available through the newer campus. Link, as you can see here, they will also be available through the toolbox from the SESA project, and that toolbox contains a lot of other interesting materials to help share that knowledge and the learnings, and maybe as a help to generate those more regional policies to address the challenges that we are facing today. And to wrap up, if you have any follow-up questions or suggestions, do get in touch. You can reach out to us at least via the SESA project website, which is the link at the bottom, and possibly also, as indicated in chat, some of our guests directly if you want to. And with that, I would like to thank everyone very much. Have a lovely day, and till we meet again. Thank you.
Bye-bye.